Retired Colonel Karl Nell recently spoke at the 2024 SALT Conference. And last year, Gary Nolan spoke. And they spoke about ET, NHI, non-human intelligence. That's exactly what Colonel Karl Nell spoke about. Now, originally, David Grush was scheduled to speak. But at the last minute, David Grush had to cancel due to scheduling conflicts. And Karl Nell took his place. Let's dive in and take a look at his entire interview that he did at the SALT conference. I'm also going to show you all a clip from News Nation from Leslie Kane talking about Karl Nell from last summer. And what she says about him is quite interesting. So let's dive in, y'all. If you're new to the channel and you like content like this, please hit that subscribe button. I put out a new video every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do not miss a day. And please hit that like button, vetters. That really helps out the videos. So thank y'all so much for the support there. And of course, comment down below. What do you think about Karl Nell's comments, especially what he says at the beginning? Let's go. All right. First thing we're going to do is look at what the SALT conference is. Again, links in the description. You can look at everything yourself, uninterrupted by me. So the SALT conference. SALT is a global investment platform connecting institutional asset owners with asset managers and technology entrepreneurs. Right here in the picture, you can see Hall of Famer Alex Rodriguez and Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, the Gooch, the Cooch. I can't remember what they call him. Anyway, he started this, right? Anthony Scaramucci. And this guy over here, I don't know who that is. Anyway, so they have spoken about NHI at this conference, and you ask, why? Why are they speaking here? I don't know, honestly. It's basically connecting investors with ideas. So maybe that's it. There's funding for NHI research, would be my guess. And this is Karl Nell, Colonel Karl Nell, right? So this is who spoke at the SALT conference. Again, taking David Grush's place. And this is the actual SALT conference featuring Karl Nell, which we are going to watch. Now, I've also, after we watch this, I've also got some reactions that I want to show as well. So just pay attention. There's a lot here. All right, let's dive into this.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening.
Again, we're going to watch the entire thing, okay? It's 21 minutes. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. I'm glad that we are the final talk of this year's SALT event. And I'm very excited to discuss what I consider to be one of the most consequential questions of our lifetime, which is, are we alone in the universe? And I'm very lucky to have Karl Nell here joining me for this conversation. Karl, thank you so much for coming. And Anthony and AJ over at SALT, thank you so much for hosting this. So Karl, maybe to begin, can you share a little bit about your background, who you are, and perhaps why people should care what you say?
Sure. Well, thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. It's a fantastic event, and I'm glad to see a large bunch of folks that stuck it out to the end for this talk. So I was fortunate. I had a four-year ROTC scholarship to Penn. I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. The Army sent me overseas to do signal corps engineering projects, so I did a lot of strategic comm projects in Europe. I ended up working in Army Space Command. I commanded a satellite ground station, war trace to the Joint Chiefs. I spent some time at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The Army ultimately sent me to get a master's in mechanical engineering, a master's in strategic studies, graduate work in computer science. I was on track to stay in, but I decided that I wanted to pursue more of a technical career. So I got out and ended up working at Bell Labs, which was a fantastic place. Unfortunately, I was there during the trivestiture that folks may be familiar with, where the company got split up. I left Bell Labs and ended up working in Lockheed Missiles and Space. I worked at Northrop Grumman. I've ran strategic technology programs in the defense industry, worked for a lot of the three-letter agencies, ultimately was a deputy chief of staff or deputy CTO for a $2 billion company. I was a vice president general manager of a Northern Virginia-based R&D firm. I stayed in the military, in the reserve. I commanded at every grade level through brigade. I was fortunate to stand up the Army's newest expeditionary MI brigade. I was the deputy chief of staff for combatant command. Ultimately, this experience sort of combined to give me the opportunity to come in and advise Army Futures Command, the largest reorganization in the Army Reserve since really 1973, on how the Army could be more effective. And my last assignment was involved with the UAP task force, which maybe is the most apropos for this discussion.
And so, Karl, here's the $1 million question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
And
So, pardon me. That clip in particular, and the next clip and the next part that's about to come up, has been floating around everywhere on Twitter, and what people are talking about. So pay attention to his answer on this next question. But real quick, what is he saying? Right? Non-human intelligence exists. It's been interacting with humanity for a long time. Right? Wow. Just right there. Just said. Just like that. Boom. Just like his lunch order. Right?
so, Karl, that is quite a bold statement. I'm wondering, and I'm curious, how confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
And Karl, what
Zero doubt.
evidence have you seen? What was the moment where you developed this level of conviction? Because what you're saying is extremely consequential and very important. And I know that a lot of people here, even perhaps, may not believe that statement.
Right. Well, probably a better way to ask that is, how can the folks in the audience come to a common understanding of what this phenomenon is? And so there's sort of two tracks here. One is from first principles, and another is actually from the data. So let's take a look at the data. So we can look at some folks that have very high level access to information, like Paul Hellyer, who is the defense chief for Canada, has come out and said the same thing. We can look at Ham Eshed, the head of Israel's, or former head of Israel's Space Force, has said the same thing. Chris Mellon, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intel, SAPCO, has essentially said the same thing. Lou Elizondo has said the same thing. David Grush has said the same thing. David Grush cleared for presidentially level material. So you're looking at people that are in a position to know this, and they're telling you the same thing. You could take a look at the Gang of Eight in the Senate and in Congress. So there's two members of the Gang of Eight, Marco Rubio and Senator Chuck Schumer, that signed up to the UAP disclosure amendment last year that basically said they're not being told the truth and we need to push forward on that. So that's sort of an overview of some of the data. From a first principles standpoint, what's so unusual about this realization? There's billions of stars in the galaxy. Life here evolved in 500 million years, which is basically a blink of an eye. We've found planets around every star that we've looked at. It's likely that the universe is full of life. If you look at the SETI program in particular, the SETI program has all the same assumptions that you would accept and probably make with respect to this topic, except that they believe that non-human intelligence is transmitting signals here. But at the same time, like, we're not transmitting signals. SETI doesn't transmit signals, and the only signals that are actually broadcast of high enough power into space for somebody to pick up come from broadcast television and ballistic missile early warning systems, which you could argue our technology is moving away from. We're going to satellite, we're going to fiber. Broadcast TV is a thing of the past. And if you get to some state where society is stable, maybe we don't need ballistic missile early warning systems. So the other guy is probably not going to transmit. But what the other guy may do is come here if that's possible to do. And there's physics models that suggest that that may be possible.
And Carl.
So real quick, another, pardon me, guys, I got definitely getting a little under the weather. So my apologies. But hey, I do not miss a day. Listen, something about this that I find interesting is, and a lot of people did, was his answer there, right? He was asked, what direct evidence have you seen to give you such conviction, right, that you have zero doubt? You are 100% certain that NHI not only exist, right? Let's just call it what it is, aliens. Okay, that's what he's saying. Not only do aliens exist, but that they're here and visiting with us, right? That is the part that he's so most certain about. But he misses a great opportunity here to give a more direct answer, right? Because he doesn't answer the question. He just says, who else also thinks this? Which is not a reason why, right? It's like, why do you think, what evidence have you seen that makes you think this? And it just completely glossed over. Now, that could be because he has seen something and can't talk about it. And even just saying, I've seen something and can't talk about it, you've already talked about it, right? So, or it's just that he's only heard it from other people, and that's why he's 100% certain. Because these are people he trusts, so he thinks, why would they lie to me? So, but even then, wouldn't you say 99%? Right? And I think you would get more respect that way, to be honest with you, right? 98%, 85% certain, right? Because again, when you say without a doubt, zero doubt, that only leaves one answer possible for there to be zero doubt from someone like this. You would hope anyway. They have, with their own eyes, seen a craft, touched a craft, been inside a craft, seen a body, touched a body, whatever, interacted with being something, and probably multiple times. Because I don't think just once would be enough to really prove it, right? You'd want to just really make sure, again, to say zero doubt. One, it's not human and it's intelligent. Why do you think it's intelligent? Because it has technology greater than humans? Has anyone ever even talked about that? Why do we say they're advanced intelligence? Just because they have technology that passes us. Again, what are we saying is intelligence? Is just things, right? Things, mics and electronic, like that's the only way to demonstrate intelligence. Right? Nobody ever talks about their society or their culture or how advanced they are with societal norms, and does that make sense? How they get along and this, right? It's always their technology, so they are an advanced intelligence, right? Like, as if that's the whole point of the universe and living and being, is just to advance in a technological sense forever. Just keep getting, for what purpose? Like, what does it help me to get to Zeta Reticuli in 2 seconds over walking down the end of my street? 2 seconds. Like, what's the difference at the end of the day? Right? Like, again, why are we so obsessed with technology being the advancement and not just how we treat each other as humans? And just finding the purpose of life and being happy. Shouldn't that be the purpose? Just being happy, content. And why can't that be a sign of advanced intelligence? Right? A species that's happy. Instead, we hear about them abducting us, studying us, farming us, all kinds of stuff, right? Like, that doesn't sound very advanced to me. It sounds very primitive to me. So I don't know. Anyway, that was quite a tangent I went on. But regardless, Karl Nell missed an opportunity here to answer that question and give his direct evidence that he's seen, because he has to have seen something. Please don't tell me it's just other people told me, right? Because that's all he says. Well, these people said it also. This guy said it, and this guy said it, and this guy said it. Okay, what does that mean? Look, I like Karl Nell a lot. And he gave a great speech at, what was it, the Seoul Symposium or whatever, last November. And then they released the videos in February, I think. A Gary Nolan thing that he put on, which David Grush was a part of as well. And again, Karl Nell is filling in for David Grush at this conference we're watching right now, this SALT conference, right? And I would wager to guess, maybe not all of them, but I think there was definitely a list of questions sent to Karl Nell, so he knows what to expect and how to prepare some answers. And okay, I get that. That totally makes sense. But there are a couple of questions that this interviewer, Alex, asked that I think aren't on that list, which is good. But, you know, it was a great question he asked and the way he asked it. But, yeah, Karl Nell did not answer that question, and that's what we all want to know. Right? This whole idea, zero doubt, NHI, right? And that's probably going to be my title and thumbnail because that's what people click on. But at the end of the day, we keep hearing that. Honestly, for me, that's not a surprise. Like, I'm not shocked by that anymore. Hearing somebody say, yeah, without a doubt, we have NHI. Okay. I'm not shocked by that anymore. You know, what's interesting is I interviewed Nick Pope a year ago, around this time. And I remember asking him, you know, how confident are you about that, right? He said 50-50. I don't know. I'm in the middle. I have no way of knowing. I've seen no smoking gun. There's nothing. A lot of people have said that. I remember asking James Fox the same thing. He said, I'm as far along as I was 30 years ago. You know, meaning, and he still doesn't know. He still wasn't 100% certain. So why are these guys so certain? Again, where can we go from here? You know what I mean? Where this answer of, yep, zero doubt, zero. So, okay, keep saying that. For how long is that going to last? How many years? How many months before people just start going, okay, where's the evidence here? Right? Again, you start talking to people at SALT conferences, people who invest huge portfolios, 100 million, 100 billion, billions, whatever. They're not just going to throw money like that around without seeing something. You know, as this gets out more into the public, people are just, how much longer can we just keep saying that? All right. So anyway, he did miss a big opportunity. Again, granted, this is a great interview. So let's get back to it. Enough of me blabbing.
I mean, what you're saying is extremely consequential, and you've referenced other people that have said the same thing that also have similar credibility. There's similar reasons for why we should believe many of these folks, yet the government itself has not formally disclosed. They've been very reluctant to do that. Why? Why do you think that is?
So there's 6 basic reasons, and this, again, you could draw this out from first principles. There's a national security reason. There's the lack of a plan. There's the potential for societal disruption. There's the possibility that there's some non-public agreement.
Real quick, I could definitely tell the questions were given to him ahead of time. And this is more like a presentation rather than an interview. Look at the way Karl Nell addresses the audience when he's answering these questions. And Alex just is kind of setting them up. Right? They're not really having this conversation, which doesn't mean anything. Right? Because Karl knows immediately to go to, well, there's 6 points, and you know, blah, blah. I mean, so I don't know. That's interesting. It is presented. You take that however you want.
There's the potential for misdeeds and the desire to cover up misdeeds. And there's just the basic organizational intransigence and lack of priority that might be associated with the topic. So all these things are factors. The issue is that really the national security issue subsumes all the others. And so there's an opportunity maybe to contract the national security issue similarly to what was done with nuclear weapons and nuclear energy, such that nuclear energy is not necessarily classified and is available to the public. But lack of a plan and the potential for societal disruption are key ingredients that would prevent any responsible leader from coming forward with information that they don't have the means to address in a responsible way. It would be irresponsible to do that.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you have absolute conviction that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet, that there are factions within our own government that know about this, yet we still don't have a plan, and they may represent a security issue. This may pose a threat to humans, yet you still believe that we should disclose. Is that right?
Correct, right. So there's really three reasons that trump all those others. And those others are basically valid, like I said. So the first issue is the moral right. The government exists for and by the people. And so the nature of reality is fundamentally not government information. People have a right to know the world in which we live, and the pursuit of happiness requires that knowledge. So that's sort of the first kind of overarching philosophical foundation for this.
I agree with that.
You know, as a corollary to that, if there are misdeeds that were done, then they need to be remediated. If there's lack of proper oversight, which is suggested by some of the whistleblowers, that needs to be remediated. So the first issue is the moral issue. The second issue is being in a reactive mode is never preferable to being in a proactive mode. So reactive mode is basically trying to prevent disclosure. But failing that, you might get a situation where you have catastrophic disclosure that creates all the problems that you were trying to prevent. So a more balanced middle path of controlled disclosure is the best way to do this, which is, again, an argument for some amount of disclosure. And the third part is simply societal advance and global competitiveness. More brain trust needs to be brought into this topic in order to make progress and to improve society. And so all three of those things together trump the 6 other reasons for non-disclosure.
And what do you think happens if we don't disclose? I know you mentioned this idea of catastrophic disclosure. Maybe disclosure may be forced upon us. How do you think about that?
So the situation is usually thought of as a binary state. It's like an all or nothing. And people have sort of argued this. But anybody paying attention realizes the government has already indicated that unidentified anomalous phenomena are real, they're not ours, and they're not our adversaries. The Pentagon has said that. Like, for people that are paying attention, like, that shoe already dropped. So for a lot of people, they think that the second shoe to drop is this is non-human intelligence, and maybe the conversation stops there. Like, the president comes out and says, there's non-human intelligence. The truth is that will precipitate this crescendo of other questions that maybe the government's not ready to answer, that will court, if not precipitate, potential negative ramification for society. And so as an example of this, I would actually point to something from the ancient past, the Bronze Age collapse. So Eric Klein, Princeton University, 2015, wrote a very interesting book called 1177 BC, the year that civilization failed. And so this is well known to current scholarship. Within a single lifetime, all of the very effective ancient civilizations of the Bronze Age failed due to a confluence of reasons that are not necessarily fully understood today. So we're talking about Egypt, the Hittite Empire, the Minoan Empire, the Manasseh Empire, the Babylonian Empire. All these civilizations failed, never to return, other than, let's say, Egypt. And so these were highly sophisticated civilizations with highly developed infrastructures, highly developed administrative states. They were globalist, in a sense, very similar to today in terms of the known world, the known Near East. They were economically interdependent. They had both diplomatic ties and commerce ties. And yet these civilizations failed in a single lifetime because of stressors that these civilizations collectively could not address within the time frame. And so if we look at our society today, one might argue that it's similarly fractured, similarly under economic stress, similarly under cultural stress as well, fractured and fragile diplomatic situation. It mirrors very much this scenario.
Yeah.
And so for a responsible decision maker, that is certainly a factor.
And so I guess when you say that, are you implying that perhaps we as a society may not be ready for disclosure? Or are you saying that we may not be able to defend ourselves against this other force?
So there's sort of different viewpoints on whether people are ready to deal with this phenomenon. And, popular culture is kind of infused with this stuff. Roswell became a meme a long time ago. We got programs on ancient aliens, Skinwalker Ranch, all this stuff. I guess I would draw an analogy, though, for people that believe in a certain faith tradition, whatever that faith tradition is, and hold to that and subscribe to that in a very serious and devout way, and sort of pose the question, even for folks of that ilk, and I would count myself as one, if you're confronted with the reality of your religious belief system, like the reality of the metaphysical, an angel, a messenger from God, what have you, that's going to be a sea state change in your way of dealing with reality, right? Even though you already believe it, right? So it's one thing to believe and it's another to know. And I think in this context, this phenomena has the potential for an analogous effect both on the individual and on society.
Yeah, but do you think that the phenomena, this non-human form of intelligence, represents a threat to humanity?
So this is a good question too, and some of the other folks have sort of framed things in that light, and I guess I would suggest that if the universe is governed by conservation laws, and it's probably reasonable to assume the laws of nature that we understand apply everywhere. We may have incomplete understanding, undoubtedly we do, of these laws, but they're sort of homogeneous and they apply throughout the universe. And so those laws are governed by conservation rules. There's conserved quantities. And so this reality really forces a Darwinian type competition in order to survive. And so it's reasonable to assume any other civilization that's evolved has come up through the same Darwinian evolutionary process. So I think it's naive to expect complete altruism until and unless you get to a state of post-scarcity, where you essentially have no physical needs that we're kind of encumbered with in this universe. And so in some sense, it's the economics of the future that are going to determine whether there's cooperation, competition, or some kind of symbiosis, and inform the intention. But to assume either malintent or complete altruism, I think, is somewhat naive.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is it's impossible to know the true intentions of a higher intelligence. We may be competing for the same scarce resources. We may not be, right? We may be almost irrelevant to them, and they may be acting altruistically, although we cannot safely assume that. And so I guess I'm curious.
See, that's what I've always said. How can we trust this intelligence, right? And that's why, again, I don't want to attempt anything like CE5 or any sort of reaching out and trying to make contact. We just have no way to know. But, you only live once, so.
If we continue down this disclosure path, do you believe that disclosure is inevitable?
So, again, people that sort of look at this topic and study it, and there have been some good examinations on this from a historical standpoint, have realized that, we're not in really a new state. This sort of disclosure emphasis has come and gone over time. And so this is not the first time we've arrived at this stage. I would suggest that maybe the peak of this current cycle happened last December with the Schumer amendment, and then it got rolled back. It was defeated in the House. And so it remains to be seen, if the process is going to continue. One hopes and can maybe draw a little bit of confidence that maybe this will come around is the colloquy that Senator Schumer and Senator Rounds had back in December. After their amendment got killed, they basically went on the Senate floor and articulated their rationale for the legislation. And I think Senator Schumer, to quote him, almost said it was a travesty that this did not pass. So this is, a bipartisan colloquy on a topic that I guess most people would probably consider fringe, and yet these two senators felt the need to do that and to double down on their desire to see this through.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see maybe a reintroduction of some version of that this summer with the goal of maybe putting it into the NDAA by the end of the year.
Do you think that it's imperative that the United States leads on the disclosure efforts?
So this is an interesting question, too, because this is a global phenomenon, and it's affecting other countries, just like the United States, the reporting on this is clear over decades. Other countries have reported this stuff.
Let's be real. Every time, and I'm a small channel, every time I do a live stream, I ask, where's everybody watching from? People chime in from all over the world. 50, 75, 80 different countries and places. Like, it's crazy. Why does the United States need to lead this?
And not only that, the Vatican has come out and made statements that reference or tangentially reference this topic. So organized religion has a say in this topic as well. So it's really a whole of planet, whole of humanity problem. And so the U.S. has got its role to play, but these other countries have their role to play, and it would behoove us to recognize that U.S. action could be preempted by another party, and it would be probably more conducive to work collectively.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I don't fully understand that I'd love to get your thoughts on, Carl, I mean, if we assume that a higher form of non-human intelligence has been visiting this planet, if we assume that some of the statements made by folks like Dave Grush are true, that we have crash materials, and if we assume that those craft that we may have exhibit characteristics that defy our current understanding of physics, it would seem that that technology would provide an incredible strategic advantage to whatever nation ends up reverse engineering it first. And so, to me, that would imply that there is a race happening to reverse engineer this, and that this topic would be a top priority. Do you agree with that?
So I think some of what you say is a reasonable conclusion to be drawn, and I've suggested something similar in past statements. The point here, though, is to go from a pre-disclosure to a post-disclosure world, maybe two stable states that are separated by an unstable middle ground. And so how you make that transition, again, this speaks to the concern about this catastrophic disclosure. And this has come up in sort of arms regulation, too. Mutually assured destruction, however much we don't like it, is sort of a stable kind of, geostrategic regime. The Reagan-era defense shield idea is also a very stable scenario, but to go from one to the other is very unstable. Yeah. And so this topic sort of mirrors that.
Yeah, and I know you and I were talking earlier about this idea that in order to really understand the phenomena, it's likely that we have to further our understanding of reality itself. And I guess I'm wondering, I can imagine a future where we acknowledge and we know that there is a higher form of non-human intelligence, yet we still don't truly understand the phenomena. We still don't truly understand reality. And so I guess I'm wondering, do you think that we'll ever truly understand what's going on? Or if part of the game, part of the journey, part of life itself is operating in an environment where at least part of it is fundamentally unknowable to us?
So it's a totally philosophical, epistemological question, right? Really about the nature of knowledge itself, right? Like, how can we know what we know, and how can we be sure about what we know? I guess personally, I subscribe to the idea that there is an ultimate truth, and that humanity, being created in the image of a higher power, is endowed with the quality to pursue an understanding of that. And so our part of our objective in this existence is to seek that out and try to understand that ultimate truth to a greater and greater degree. And this would be a component of that, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Carl, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. I'm hopeful and optimistic that together maybe we can move the ball forward here and further our understanding of what is really going on, because I certainly agree with you. I think it is very consequential that we figure this out. So thank you again for coming. Thank you again to SALT for hosting us, and thank you all for listening. Bye.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, look, great speech, great, some quick things before we move on to the next part. Some great points, and just like anything, what I appreciate from something is it starts a conversation, and this starts a great conversation. So salute to, Colonel Karl Nell for doing that. I wonder why Alex didn't, Oh, you're certain about this NHI? What do they look like? Where are they from? You know what I mean? Let's get some details. Why are we not talking about that? Forget how society's going to take it. Like, give us the deets, So, and what I disagreed with there at the end of Karl Nell, again, he says what he thinks humanity's, purpose is, right, to understand why we're here, understand reality, understand the ultimate truth. Why? I don't like that. One, I don't like the idea that humanity has to strive for one goal. Sorry. I think people should have their own goals, do whatever they want. If someone's like, I don't want to do that, then okay. So I don't know. Asking humanity, it just sounds like a weird purpose in life. It sounds circular. It just sounds pointless. We're only here created in the image of our Creator to understand why we're here. I mean, boring. That's just me. And I don't think we can ever know if we know everything. It's impossible. Even if you think you know everything, how would you know? You wouldn't. So it's a sort of pointless goal. I mean, you should just be curious and always looking, right? Because no matter, even if we broke through another reality and we understood, our understanding of reality expanded, right? Who's to say it couldn't expand again and again and again and again and again, right? Let's say we find these other dimensions. Well, what if it turns out there's other things called tremensions? It's like a whole new thing. It has nothing to do with tremensions. I don't know. I'm just making this up, right? Like, we don't know. Everything can just keep going, essentially, infinitely. And that includes discovery. That's fascinating to me, to be honest with you. It's like we're on an endless race. There is no finish line. I don't know. I'm kind of okay with that. Keep learning. Next generation keeps learning. Imagine if it just got to a point where it was just like, well, that's enough. That's why the Bible and other religious texts initially intrigued me, but over time I realized, well, how boring. The story ends. It's like, here's the story, this is what's going to happen, and that's it. That's it? Like, it was all laid out for you. Everything. The future, present, the past. All laid out right there. That's boring to me. So, anyway. All right, let's move on to this next part. I could keep yapping about that forever. Tell me down in the comments what you think. I'm sure you're already typing away. All right, here we go. So this is interesting. Okay, I told you guys about a clip. All right, this is Leslie Kean on News Nation. Let me just play it. Okay, let me just play this, and then we'll talk about it.
That we're going to see is that other whistleblowers, some of whom have already given testimony to Congress, they might decide to go public, and others may come to Congress now that they've seen what happened at the hearing yesterday.
David Grush said in his testimony that he talked to 40 people over 4 years, all of whom had information on a secret military program that has non-human craft and remains. Is it surprising to you that none of those 40 people has spoken out?
It is surprising. It actually isn't, Elizabeth. I mean, some of them have. One of them actually was in our article in the debrief. A former Army colonel named Karl Nell. I think maybe some of them have spoken out a little bit, and we just don't maybe put it all together. But it really isn't surprising because of the repercussions that people face. And Dave Grush is an example of that. He talked a little bit in the hearing yesterday about the repercussions that he's faced, which are very harmful to him, both personally and professionally for speaking out. So I think others have the same concerns, and they've seen it happen to him. They want to wait and make sure it's safe for them to come forward and not have to face the same kinds of things that David Grush faced.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that? I mean,
So, again, she's stating that Colonel Karl Nell is one of David Grush's 40 whistleblowers. Now, that was recorded last summer, 2023. We're coming up on a year now, just after David Grush's testimony, right? So, Leslie Kean says that Karl Nell is one of his 40 witnesses. that led David Grush to testify before Congress about non-human intelligence, right? So what does Karl Nell know as being a witness? Witness to what, right? I find his answers very interesting. I personally think he might have seen something. That's why he avoided the question that way. Not avoiding it like, oh, I don't want to answer that because I'm scared to answer that. No, I think more like, I know more than I'm allowed to say about this. I've seen something, and, you know, it's not like Carl's out there doing podcasts and stuff. He's not. So, yeah, I do. I find that interesting. It's potential that Karl Nell saw something, touched something. He has had to have, again, like I stated earlier in the video, to say zero doubt about a non-human intelligence, right? That some of this unidentified anomalous phenomena that we have seen, some of it is without a doubt derived from non-human intelligence, right? And what does that mean? Again, non-human intelligence. Anyway, found that interesting, right? He is one of David Grush's 40 witnesses. Now, that information is out there. I even made a video about it a while ago, but, you know, it is the way you cycle through all this stuff. It's a good reminder, right? Now, this person right here, who's this? Who's this guy? This is Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, right? He was the chief meteorologist for the Navy. And he is a witness to the Go Fast video, I believe it's called, before it was ever public and out. And, you know, he also might be a firsthand witness in another way that he has not revealed. Let me explain why. So, thank you, first of all, to our Discord. This is why I love the vetted Discord. If you haven't already, link in the description. Go check it out. Become a member. It's free. Okay. Someone posted this from LinkedIn about Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet. And I found it interesting because of what he said. Let me read it. My colleague, retired Army Colonel Karl Nell, gave an exceptional interview at the recent SALT conference. His topic was UAP, formerly UFOs. And he said with 100% certainty that the world is being visited by higher-level non-human intelligence. I know he is correct with complete certainty. Why has society not taken this world-changing reality seriously? Partly because of deliberate and systematic disinformation campaign by the U.S. government, which has perpetuated the stigma associated with UAP. Karl is right on the target for why we need controlled disclosure of what the U.S. government knows about UAP. 1, address a moral imperative. The public has a right to know the nature of reality, which should not be exclusive to the government. The pursuit of happiness requires it. 2, correct illegal and unethical conduct. Unelected officials are failing to allow congressional oversight of the programs and protocols involving UAP. And 3, benefit humanity. The science and technology breakthroughs that can be accomplished by dedicated research into UAP could be transformational. Well done, Karl. Look, it's this part right here. Certainty. Right? 100% certainty. Complete certainty. I know he is correct. I know he is correct. Now, you may be saying, Patrick, that's semantics, Patrick. Semantics. Let me just read this right here. Okay. Transformational, breakthroughs, world-changing reality, right? These are not my words, right? Yes, we should care about the semantics and the details and everything. If it's a world-changing reality, yeah, we have a right to ask questions and to see evidence of this world-changing reality. This idea that, well, we should just all believe in it anyway. No, we're allowed to say, I don't know, and where's the proof? Right? If you want us to invest a lot of money into this, show us a little something. Give us something to go off of here. Right? But I agree with all of this. Right? It's interesting that someone who dedicated their life to the military would talk about the United States government in this way. I got to be honest, I find this interesting, right? Systematic disinformation campaign by the U.S. government. That's a rear admiral for the Navy saying that about his own government. He's a proud service member of America, just writing that in a LinkedIn post, right? That's interesting. That's quite an accusation to his own government, right? You just don't see that, you know. That's interesting, you know, for someone like him to say that. Now, do I agree? Yeah, I do agree. This is also interesting. All right, this is the last thing I'm going to share before I get my final thoughts here. I asked Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet the question below if his experience is tied to Karl Nell's. Whoever this is, Tim Phillips, great question. Right, he says, Tim Phillips. This was quite the revelation. Zero doubt. This aligns with your experiences? 100% from Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet. 100%. I think it's possible Tim Gallaudet is also a firsthand witness or experiencer to the phenomena. And I think he is also one of David Grush's 40 witnesses. The only ones that have been confirmed are Jason Sands. That has been confirmed. Okay, look it up. At least that's what Jason Sands is claiming. Eric Davis, again, from Eric Davis's mouth. So that's what he's claiming. And Karl Nell. That's all I know. And again, David Grush hasn't confirmed any of this. These are just these people, right? Leslie Kane saying about Karl Nell, Eric Davis saying about himself, and Jason Sands saying about himself. Who else? I don't know. But I bet Tim Gallaudet is one of them. And I think he has had firsthand experience. And I think potentially Karl Nell has as well. And what is that? You know, what are they holding back from? I don't know. Can't wait to read the comments. Thank you guys for the video today. This was a lot of fun to cover this. Again, it's all about starting a discussion and asking questions. Again, we're talking about a world-changing reality. We should be asking questions. Anyone telling you not to is loco. Okay? Again, world-changing reality. That allows for questions. I'm sorry. It just does. All right. We'll see you on tomorrow's video. Remember, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Every day's a gift, y'all.